Welcome to Strasbourg. I was 20 years in this European Parliament, and now I'm back again to meet the person who wants to leave this terrible place because he hates the European Union, the hero of the Brexit, Mr. Nigel Farage. Okay, go. Hi, Nigel.
Hello, Dan.
Now, 2 years ago, you fought a big fight for Brexit. Now I'm looking. It seems very difficult, your Brexit. You can't do it.
Well, you can do what you like in life. You can do anything you want if you've got the will and the determination.
But you don't want to say to me that Theresa May doesn't want.
She doesn't believe in it. She never believed in it. She was on the other side. She backed the Remain side. She is an establishment figure. She's got the job of Prime Minister. Whenever she's asked about Brexit, she says, I will carry out the will of the people. But then when she's asked, do you believe in Brexit? She can't give an answer.
You still believe in Brexit? Seriously, don't make ideology.
Oh, I believe not just in Brexit. I actually believe now that the European Union is a bad project and needs to end completely.
You're still, when you see what happened in the world, when you see what happened in Iran, when you see what happened Russia, even your friend Trump is very difficult to understand. You think that European Union is a bad project?
Yes, it's false.
Really?
It's false.
What is false? What is false?
The flag, the anthem.
But the flag, come on,
the
flag.
Parliament, the Commission.
But your
attempt to impose upon people a sense of European nationhood and identity. It doesn't work. Now, if you ask me about Europe, do I love Europe as the continent? Do I love all the different European peoples? Do I think they should trade together, cooperate together, be friends together? Yes, 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 and yes, I do. I want European cooperation. But I think this model that we've now got of centralised government in Brussels, remote from people, away from the voters, it just isn't working. And I think even people like you, who've believed in this project for 50 years, just look at Italy today. It's time, actually, not for Brexit to be rethought, but the whole European project.
Okay, I know this is your position, but I have still a question. Now, 2 years that you won the Brexit, you're still a European MP. Why?
Yeah,
Why you don't say, I go back to England?
Well, I want to witness the final days. I want to witness the temple collapsing as we leave.
But come on.
No, I've got to be there. I've got to be there. I've got to be a witness to it. And I have to say, being here has been very useful. Just watching the way in which Barnier, Verhofstadt and the others operate has been very, very useful.
Yes, but okay, you say Barnier is wrong, Theresa May is wrong. The only one who is right is Nigel.
No, the people.
Well, the people. Even if you see the
majority of the people.
Even if you see the polls.
And here's the funny thing. Just think about, since Brexit, what's happened. We've had dramatic results in Austria, with a party that we would have called... Well, in fact, I remember in the European Parliament, you wanted to put sanctions on Austria when the Freedom Party did well, going back years. Austria... Big shit.
But
Hungary now, a landslide victory for a government that believes in nation state. Italy.
Nigel, be fair. Even the far right in Austria, even courts in Austria, both the conservatives say, we don't want to go out of the euro, we don't want to go out of Europe, we want to remain on Europe.
Well, here's the funny thing.
No, is it true or not that they say this?
Here's the funny thing. 10 years ago, it was said, Nigel Farage is the European Union's worst nightmare because he wants to leave the European Union. I would now say to you, Viktor Orban is the European Union's worst nightmare.
It's true.
Because he doesn't want to leave.
You have a point.
So you've got a bigger... I was easy. All I wanted to do was leave. You've now got people who want to wreck it from the inside.
Yes. They don't want to wreck it. They want the European money. They want the European money. You know that Viktor Orban is his family and his friend is a real mafia for European money. You agree on this?
Well, I'm not going to agree on the word mafia because that's
it's hard.
That is a word that means other things. Look,
but you agree that it's not very clean what they are doing.
I think whether you look at Hungary, Poland, whether you look at Austria, whether you look at Italy, wherever you look, you can see what the voters are saying is they're not rejecting outright European cooperation. I would accept that. But what they are saying is that normal countries control their own borders and control their own
But
budgets.
it's-
That is why we have elections. What is the point of even the concept of democracy if effectively the European Commission run your country and your life?
No, they don't run your country. They don't run your life. It's
Of
a nice
course they
But
do.
look, I want to
They
go
have
back.
the sole right to propose legislation. The civil service propose the laws. What kind of
But you
setup
can
is
say
that?
no. You can say no. The European Parliament can refuse it. The Council of Europe can refuse
Yes,
it.
but it can't refuse everything, can
They
it?
can refuse everything. They can.
I think 5 times in 25 years. The
No, but
European
it's not the
Parliament
problem. It's not the problem because
have rejected
no.
it.
Look.
This is a bad form of government. It's too remote from people.
Oh yes, I would agree with you. It's a bad. I want a
not-
real government.
It's not democratic. And here's the thing where you and I will disagree. People don't want a European identity. They want a national identity.
This is half true and half not. You know, it's not true because I have a lot of people. If you go in the European, if you go to Berlin, if you go to other cities, and you see the young people, they have a European identity. They have.
Actually, this is interesting. This is interesting. Now, I would accept that in the Brexit referendum, it was a younger generation who generally wanted to stay part, roughly 2/3, a third, wanted to stay part of the European project. That is true.
So how do you explain this?
Look at it. The education system. The education system.
What you mean? They are crazy because the education is crazy.
They've been brainwashed.
Oh come on!
Through
you
universities.
too.
I mean, what you guys here have done is to stuff our universities with Monet professors. Even Stalin didn't manage to overtake the universities.
Come on,
like
you are
this.
more intelligent than this argument.
but how
It's
inter-
quite ridiculous.
No.
It's ridiculous.
21 of the vice-chancellors of the top British universities publicly advocated a Remain vote in the referendum.
They're perhaps
That
because
is
they are
not-
intelligent.
That is not what well, they've been given money, of course.
No, come on.
Universities are to teach young people critical thinking, and young people should make their own minds up. However,
let's make a break on one
in
thing.
Italy, 60% of the under 30s voted for the League or Five Star.
It's true. And
Marine Le Pen got more votes from the under 30s than did Monsieur Macron.
It's not true.
You go
It's not
across
true.
Europe.
They got a lot, but not more.
For example,
But
in Sweden, when the Swedes rejected joining the euro, 70% of the under 30s voted against the
Yes,
euro.
but-
So this idea, Danny, that the young people in Europe are in love with this project, I think is a mistake. Actually, increasingly, the young are being tempted by different political movements.
Okay, it's possible. I want to ask you one question. You say Theresa May doesn't want the Brexit.
Doesn't believe in Brexit.
Okay, she doesn't believe, so she won't do it.
She is compromising. She is agreeing to keep us signed up to a whole load of European agencies. She wants a long transition period. And I have to be honest.
But can you explain me? Can you explain, if this is true, and if the majority of the British people are for the Brexit, why is your party so weak?
Well, I'm not much involved with that party anymore. As you know, I resigned after the referendum.
You mean it's all only with you? With you, it will be strong.
No,
Without you,
I know you're asking me to talk about the party, and I'm giving you the caveat that I'm not heavily involved. I think, as far as UKIP's concerned, what UKIP achieved was remarkable, particularly in the context of a country that is used to first past the post elections and not proportional runs. The general view of the public was, you've won the referendum, you've got Brexit, there's no need for UKIP anymore, it's done its job. We will have to see what happens. We are supposed to leave this union on March the 29th next year at midnight.
You believe
Brussels
in?
time. Well, I hope so.
No, I don't ask you if you hope. Do you believe in? Do you believe in?
I believe in leaving, of course.
No, do you believe that this will happen? No, it's not an answer. You hope, you're praying, you go to the church.
It's all I can do.
No, you can fight for.
Well, I'm doing my best through media and through debate and through comment, but the political class in Britain and across the whole of Europe are in favour of this project. Parliament, over the course of the next few months, has got the opportunity, if it wishes, to stop Brexit. I would recommend they don't do that. If they do, we'll see something far bigger than UKIP emerge in British politics.
Okay, now, again, I want to ask you, never you doubt that all the story of going out of the Union is also a problem. How do you solve the Irish question?
Oh, there is no problem with the Irish question at all. This is completely plucked out of the air by Monsieur Barnier. Look, already, let's say that's the Irish border, right? And there's no physical infrastructure over most of it. Already we have a different VAT regime. Already we have a different currency. Already we have a different judicial system. So as of today, we have different abortion laws. Already,
Yes,
already there are huge differences between the two.
But
now,
you have different abortion laws between Northern Ireland and England.
Yes, absolutely.
Also,
the solution is very clear. A simple free trade deal with no tariffs between the Republic and the North would mean there's no issue. Now, as Monsieur Barnier does not want a free trade deal with the United Kingdom, because that would make it look too easy, all right? Then...
No, but it's not the problem only of Barnier. The problem is for you. If you want your European passport... No, wait a minute. You want the European passport? The European passport to say that a British enterprise can go to Europe and function?
I think the trouble with you chaps sometimes, you're not thinking big enough, are you? Do you know the Eurozone is now 15% of the world's economy? So I want Brexit Britain to be friendly with our European neighbours. And
I know that you want to be friendly.
Think globally.
Okay, so I make you a proposition, because I understand you don't want the Union. Why do you don't fight that England becomes the 51 states of the United States?
Because if you believe in independence, you don't believe in being subservient to anybody.
May you not, you need...
We're a big country.
Oh,
we're
come
a
on.
powerful, big country. We're the fifth biggest economy in the world. We have the third biggest military in NATO. We are a big country.
No.
And actually,
Nigel,
look at the world.
Nigel,
the
wait a
world
minute.
is breaking down into smaller countries with every year that passes. This idea that you need to be part of a big bloc to have global influence
it's not. You have seen. And one example, you will see Theresa May is wrong. On Iran, England needed France and Germany as a counterpart to the decision of Trump on Iran.
A bad deal. Trump is right. Europe's wrong.
Okay, Europe is wrong. But if that's not the problem, right or wrong, if England wants to have another opinion, okay, it's not yours, but they have another opinion, alone they can't do it.
Well,
neither France...
Of course they can.
No, they can't.
Of course they can.
They can't.
Look, we should have an independent foreign policy. And what really worries me with this European project is a European foreign policy with Juncker making it clear he wants to remove veto rights. At the same time...
Veto rights from...
At the moment, foreign policy within the European Union...
It's foreign, okay.
...has a veto right.
Yes.
Juncker made clear in the State of the Union speech he wants that to end.
Yes, because...
Add to that a European army. Add to that...
But in the European army, you saw
to the east.
You saw that every time.
What happened in the Ukraine? This was eastwards expansion of the European project, and I'm worried.
So you are for Russia? You are for Putin?
No, I'm against war. I'm against war. I've seen this
who started? Who started in Ukraine? Who started?
Oh, we poked the Russian bear with a stick.
Okay,
we're going to enlarge the European Union and NATO to include Ukraine.
It was right to take crime.
I would also point out to you that the German recognition of Croatia on behalf of all of us helped kick off the Yugoslavian war as well.
It was after the beginning.
This idea that this European club is about peace, what I see is a new imperialism being built here. I don't like it. I don't want it.
And the decision of the independent Great Britain and the independent United States to make war in Iraq was a peaceful action.
It was the act of a sovereign country, whether it was the right or the wrong one. It was an act of a sovereign country. And after Iraq...
No, but was it imperialism or not?
It wasn't imperialism.
No, what was it?
No.
What was it?
Well, actually, it was vengeance by George Bush, if you really want to know.
Vengeance is imperialism.
Yeah. And when it came to...
No, come on. But...
why did you want to bomb Gaddafi? Because I remember you wanted the European Union to bomb Gaddafi.
Yes, I wanted to stop Gaddafi.
Yes.
No, wait a minute. I wanted to stop...
You wanted the EU to go to war.
No, yes, but I
say
you...
Yes. I remember.
Yes, but I want to say what I said.
I was there.
I said to stop Gaddafi to enter Benghazi. This was my point, and not to make war all over. To stop because it would be a nightmare.
You didn't want France and Britain doing this. You wanted a European Union flag on those aeroplanes.
Yes.
I rest my case.
Yes.
I rest my case.
Because, but
this
problem...
project isn't about peace and cooperation. You're the one that wants to build an empire.
Okay, I see.
Dangerous.
I see. We won't agree,
No,
but
we
you have no
won't
point.
agree. We won't
Have a nice
agree.
time. Welcome to London. I'm going to meet one of the most pro-European English Prime Minister. At the same time, he splitted completely Europe with his participation to the Iraq War. I will meet Tony Blair in his foundation. Okay? Tony, why is Brexit so complicated? It's easy, you go out, basta.
Well, it's complicated because we've had 45 years of being inside the European Union, and there are a whole series of relationships that have grown up. You know, we've been trading across the borders. Britain, one of the ironies of Brexit is that Britain helped create the single market, drove the agenda for the single market. And what this means is we're now intimately linked to Europe at a number of different levels. And for the first time in modern history, a developed country, in this case, unfortunately, Britain, is going to deliberalize its trading relations by withdrawing from the single market.
But it's interesting that you talk about Europe and you talk about the market. And a lot of European, me, for example, I would talk about the political Europe, the need of a political Europe. But you don't think that from the beginning, Britain was for Europe, but little afraid of Europe, didn't want really to make this political Europe.
Right.
You are interested in the market, in the trade.
No, I'm also interested in the politics. But, you know, you asked about the complexity. The complexity comes from the economics, really. I mean, you can withdraw from the political side of the European Union.
This is true.
And it's a kind of decision. The trouble is when you're withdrawing from the economic side, you're impacting businesses and industry and jobs and so on. But no, I completely agree with you. For me, Europe is a political, not just an economic project. And I think, again, the irony of the situation is that it's more needed today than ever. You know, you've got America that is, I think, you know, leave aside the whole Trump business. I think America is going through a phase where it wants to look after its own interests first. It's not saying it doesn't want allies, but nonetheless, it's going to be internally preoccupied. And we have the rise of China, which is just a huge geopolitical fact that I think people don't yet really understand properly.
But do you think that there is a chance to reverse the decision? You think that all the make a new vote, a new referendum, you think it's a marvelous idea, but it's on the moon, you know?
So you're talking to one of the very few people who will tell you this can really happen. Okay, and so I may be completely wrong, and this may be a fantasy, but I don't think there is a majority in Parliament. And remember, the British Prime Minister has lost her majority in Parliament now, so it's a much more balanced situation in Parliament. When she finally decides what her negotiating position is, I don't think there's a majority for either of the two propositions Parliament is currently debating. And those two propositions are, again, on the economic side, stay close to Europe, in which case you abide by Europe's rules, in which case a lot of people will say, well, why are we leaving? Or a clean break from Europe, in which case there's big economic damage, in which case people will say, well, what's the price? So I think it's possible you end up with a gridlock in Parliament, and then the only way of resolving that, and actually the simplest way of resolving it, is to say to the British people, right, you took the original decision. We've had 2 years of negotiation. You now know what the options are. You've got to decide, do you really want to go ahead in these circumstances?
Yes, but, you know, when you tell me this, you know, I have the problem that a part of your party, I don't know if you're still a member of the Labour Party.
I am.
You are, okay. A part of your party, couldn't they help May to stay out?
Yes, that's possible. Look, there is a big problem in British politics generally, which is that the Labour Party has, frankly, been taken over by people on the very far left, who are traditionally Eurosceptic themselves, who are traditionally anti-Europe. On the other hand, the Labour Party as a whole is definitely pro-Europe. So for the Labour leadership to go through the House of Commons in support of Theresa May I don't think they'll do that. So I think the question in the end will be, are the Conservatives, of which you need probably 15 or 20, who will cross to the Labour side and vote down any proposition? Now, you're right, it may not happen, and it may be that Labour facilitates Brexit, but that would be a terrible thing for us to do as a political party. And I think it is the one thing that really would divide the Labour Party in a profound way.
You talked about Europe, the necessity, Trump, and the United States. Well, there was a time that when there was a big debate on Europe, we had the time of the war in Iraq, where Europe was split. You were one of the splitting person, if I can say like this, You didn't find a European position, and so you don't think that how difficult it is. And Britain, it was very skeptical on the constitution of Europe and things like this. So you had always this, you were for, and then you split in a certain moment. You not as a person, as Prime Minister of Great Britain.
Yeah, so I think this is a challenge for Britain, but also for Europe, because I think Britain's always been on the side of European opinion that has been more pro-nation state, more towards the American alliance. But I think, that is not just an exclusively British position.
True.
And so I think, in a way, one of the tragedies actually for Europe in losing Britain is that it will lose part of what kept that alliance together, part of what represents a different strain of thinking in Europe, but nonetheless a strain that is, reasonably widespread. And I think a lot of the problems of Europe today derive from the fact that, there is a tension between what a lot of the people in Europe want and what, if you like, those who are most involved with driving forward the European ideal, the direction they want to go in. And I think just on the American situation, I do believe that the rise of China is, something that is going to pose huge challenges to the West. I think there is an alternative model of government that is now being put forward in the world. You can see this in lots of different places, including in Europe, by the way, in Hungary and so on.
In Poland.
Yeah. And in those circumstances, it's going to be really important that the West does cohere at a certain level. And that's why I think it's tragic if Europe becomes weaker, if Britain becomes weaker, and if that transatlantic alliance also becomes weaker, even though...
But the transatlantic alliance at the moment is non-existing. I mean, if Trump make 2 terms, I don't want to know how the shape of the transatlantic alliance will be in 7 years.
Yeah. So, obviously, this is a problem. The question is it temporary or permanent? But I still think what holds America and Europe ultimately together will be very strong, because you're going to have an alternative power in the East. By the way, I acknowledge that China should become a big power, is a big power, and I don't think we should try and contain China. On the contrary, I think we should partner them. But I think we're far stronger to partner them if we ourselves are strong. And, just the scale of what is going to happen there is going to pose a big challenge to Europe, to America, and to the world order of the post-war years.
Do you think that if you would be Prime Minister now, say, dream, or not dream,
Well, dream for some and a nightmare for others.
Yes. I would say, is the situation of Great Britain towards the United States now completely different at your times? I mean, what is the change?
Yeah, it's a good point.
I would say, I don't think that you would have the same reaction on Iraq if Trump would be president at that time.
I think, look, it's a different situation today in this sense that, you can't really say that Britain is that close to America at the present time either.
It's true.
So obviously one of the anxieties I have is that we get out of Europe, so we lose one big alliance, and then we're not really that close to America for all sorts of reasons at the moment. So, I mean, Britain is in a position that this is what is so dangerous about Brexit. You know, my government may talk about a global Britain, but really we're in a position of retreating from that at this present time.
You know, I was always, when I debate on Great Britain, I think the real referendum in England should be, do you want to be the 51 states of the United States or stay in the European Union? This is, I mean, the main problem of Britain, to choose between the two.
Yeah, and look, my whole policy when I was Prime Minister was to say you don't have to choose, that actually the two in the end can be, you have two big building blocks of our foreign policy. One is the alliance with Europe, the other is the alliance with America. We keep both strong. Now, I think that is even more relevant today than it was when I was Prime Minister. The risk, as I say, is we end up losing both of them, which would be ridiculous. But
yes, but you had the time when you were Prime Minister, the price to stay with the United States was to split Europe.
Well, there was always going to be a division in Europe, wasn't there? I mean, you know, some countries went with America post 9/11, some less so. But these things, I think, are temporary issues that you can get over. I think in the end, and by the way, by the time I left office, if you look at the G7 in 2005, we were kind of back together again and more or less on the same page. And you know, whatever criticisms people had of George Bush, in the end, he did actually care about the transatlantic alliance.
This is true.
So I think, you know, the worry I have at the moment is that we're all internally preoccupied. Meanwhile, the world is changing around us very fast, and we're losing sight of what I call the big picture. You know, the big picture is the geopolitics of the world's changing. The technological revolution is going to alter everything, I think, about our economy, our society, the way we live and work and think. And we're not really preparing for that. Instead, we're in Europe now very internally preoccupied. I mean, the rows over immigration and so on, our politics is getting upended. You've got a populism of the far left and far right competing to take the countries in a direction that really is not going to be compatible with the future. And, you know, you've got big players, Britain, United States, and actually some of the main European nations that are now you know, gripped by politics that is quite isolationist.
Yes, but, you know, Farage told us the problem of the Brexit is that Theresa May doesn't want the Brexit. She has to execute it, but she doesn't want. And in this position, she can't do it because she is on a no man's land.
Yeah, no, well, that is in this instance, in one sense, he's right. But, you know, what I would like to see the British Prime Minister do is to explain to the British people what the real options are. And then, you know, there is a very strong case. When we voted in June 2016 to leave Europe, we didn't know what we were leaving to. You know, so as
But it's also your problem. I mean, your problem, your time. This is what it was always my criticism, that the British government don't explain to the British people what is Europe. You just say, give me my money back. Do this. Don't do that. You know.
Well, I wouldn't go along with that, Danny. No, I was strongly in favour of Europe being.
I know. I remember in the Parliament. You told me in the European Parliament, shut up. Then you have to listen to me.
No, you took it in very good part, I may say. But no, I mean, for example, one of the things that is so troubling to me is one of the things Britain really fought for was enlargement of the European Union. I think we can see from what's happening in the world today that enlargement was a very important thing for Europe. You know, you brought in Eastern Europe.
But it brought us a lot of problems. If you see Poland, if you see Hungary, if you see Czech Republic, etc., etc.
Right, but if you think if we hadn't done that,
it's true.
We would have had a different lot of problems and maybe much more severe. And you compare Poland and Ukraine today, for all the problems. I mean, Poland and Ukraine were roughly the same GDP, roughly the same economic state in 1992, and look at the difference between them today. So,
but you think that Europe could now let enter Ukraine, let enter the Balkan state, and function. The problem is the functioning of Europe.
Sure. I think yes to the Balkans. I mean, I think it's very important that they're given a way into Europe. And, you know, Europe will find a way through its problems. I mean, I'm ultimately optimistic about the European project.
We are two. We are perhaps the two left. Okay, you're optimistic.
No, I am optimistic because I think the underlying rationale for Europe is so strong.